Hey everyone, Ben Cooper Radio, episode number 181. Apologies, I got the guest wrong last week. I was going to have that guest, and then something happened, and I had to change it, but it was all good. I hope you enjoyed it. I thought Tom Foxley was an amazing guest, really insightful, really interesting physical journey. I've always admired, kind of Royal Marine Commandos and kind of, I suppose, extreme training in any way. Kind of like when we had Luke Taberski on, who did all that mad endurance stuff. I think it's fascinating. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. And as usual, Rachel is back with myself. Hello, Rachel.
Good morning. Actually, it's not morning. It's early afternoon.
Well,
it still feels like morning. But speaking of Army, Marines, and all of that stuff, I'm reading this book at the moment. I can't remember if I posted it online. I was going to, and somebody actually suggested that we created on Twitter. Said that suggested we create a reading list for all the books that we mentioned, and perhaps we should start doing that. But I'm reading this book at the moment, and it is absolutely phenomenal. So before I tell you what the book is, I'll tell you a quick story. So I'm never particularly engrossed by audiobooks. They're the kind of thing that I listen to, and I'll listen to whilst I'm doing other things, such as, commuting or walking to and from the gym, or, if I'm just pottering around the house, I'll have an audiobook on. And so, a lot of the information goes in. But there are very few books that I listen to and things that I listen to that really make me sort of stop in my tracks and really focus on what is being said. And this is one of them. And I was coming back, I had a meeting at Liverpool Street in London on Friday, actually. And I got on the tube to come off at one stop. The first issue that I had was that I actually got on the tube the wrong direction. So by the time I'd gone 2 stops too far, I was like, oh, bloody hell, so I had to get off the tube and then come back to where I came from. I then missed my stop again because I went too far the other way, and then I missed my fast train back home to Richmond. Anyway, long story short, it was because of this book, because I was so engrossed in it and I didn't know where I was and what I was doing. Anyway, this book is called Extreme Ownership: Why US Navy SEALs Lead and Win. And it is written by 2 former Navy SEAls. And they talk about, the book is about ownership and taking responsibility for your life. And I mean, it's a business book, and it's around, accepting responsibility for your team and managing a team. But I think a lot of it you can actually use in your personal life as well, taking responsibility for yourself. And it's something that we talk a lot about on the podcast. Instead of shifting blame to somebody else, everything is actually your fault. So that book is unbelievable. I've actually started to get I've finished reading it now. It's an absolute game changer. It's certainly in my top 5 books I've ever read or listened to. And I've actually started to encourage a few of my clients to read it as well, and they've all come back and said the same thing. So absolutely phenomenal book and definitely worth reading.
Do you know what? It's an interesting concept, that, because my rugby match at the weekend, we lost. And we've had a couple of losses recently, and obviously there's more senior players, the captain, the management and stuff are like, what are we not doing right? What are we not getting and stuff? And I was, really honest after the chat with some of the people that I'm like, you have to look at leadership. It always comes down to kind of leadership and the ownership right at the top. Like in any company, the guy who owns the company, it's his problem if something's going wrong, unless there's a genuine troubled staff member or whatever. If you've got a problem in your personal life and you can't get to the bottom of it, it's your responsibility. If a team isn't performing well, then yes, there could be 1 or 2 problem players, but that doesn't outshine the dynamic, the kind of mentality of the team, how the captain's leading it, how the management are leading it, everything like that. And it's the problem with this kind of concept is that it takes massive honesty to stand there and go, fuck, actually, you're right. And when people are in kind of like a more senior position, if you're a captain of a sports team or whatever, you don't want to be the guy that almost stands there and go, do you know what, we're getting a couple of things wrong, or whatever. And I'm not picking on any specific situations here, but this happens all the time, and that we sometimes can't quite quantify or understand situations, and you quite often have to go to the top, and whether that's just you on a personal level, or it is the top of, you know, a sports team or whatever. And I suppose I draw the analogy, like right now in the Premiership, you know, there's massive support for Leicester City. They've come in as like the underdogs, and they've you know, they haven't got a more gifted physically set of players than Man United, Chelsea, you know, whatever. But they're doing better than everyone because they're obviously working as a team. They've got a dynamic, they've got a structure, they've got a system, and it's fascinating to watch. And I'm like, if people that are in theory on paper less talented that can do better than a group of really talented people, then you have to raise the question that is talent everything?
Well, what's that quote? And I know I'll get it wrong now if I say it off the cuff. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work, or words to that effect.
Yeah.
And the truth is that's exactly what you said is exactly right. It takes a very evolved person and somebody who's very aware of their ego to put their hand up and stand up and say, nah, it's my fault. You know, I'm in this situation because it's my fault. And, you know, whether that's in a business setting or a leadership setting, like I know when stuff goes wrong in my business, usually it's because I haven't communicated something to my staff effectively. So I have to look at that and think, okay, what could I have done better? And so it's not my staff. It's not their fault. It's effectively all my fault. And, you know, this book, Extreme Ownership, it is, you know, they do tell stories about their tours to Iraq, and, you know, they talk in a fair bit of detail, whether it's fabricated or not. And some of it, I mean, they say at the beginning of the book, some of the stories are fabricated and, you know, protect the identity of certain people in certain situations and stuff. But it's cool. And the biggest thing when I first started listening to it was it does put life into perspective. So aside from the message of extreme ownership and everything is on you and you're responsible for everything, whether it be in your business or your personal life, the first chapter or two really made me think, what is actually important here? Because you've got these two guys, these two Navy SEALs, and they're talking about their tour to Iraq and the horrendous conditions that they were working in. And look, regardless of whether you agree with war or not, like it's a good story and there's some good lessons behind it. But it really made me think, you know, these guys are working their asses off in a horrendous environment, and we're really worried about how many calories we're taking in a day. Like, there's loads of things that kind of come out of this book that really put things into perspective. It's really good.
Wow. The thing is, leadership's an interesting one because we look at sort of the dynamics of leadership and think, oh, that's just for people that like run a business or manage a sport team. But leadership, you know, when it boils down to it, is about you leading your own life. Yeah. And you leading yourself into battle. That might sound like a cheesy analogy, but we lead ourselves into battle every day, which is life. And sometimes life can be tough, like the shit that's thrown our way all the time. And you have decisions in front of you every single day where you can make a positive or a negative decision that will lead to a certain outcome. And that is leadership of yourself and sometimes leadership of other people. Mm-hmm. There's a book that I've got on Audible waiting for me. Apparently it's called Legacy. I've been recommended it by a friend, and that's about the I think it's All Blacks coach, or he was involved in the All Blacks setup, where he then sort of changed the kind of ethos and mentality about the All Blacks rugby team and how he believed that sort of leadership was a key thing of how they became successful as a squad and the kind of mantras around what they did and stuff. And, you know, that's got to be a good book because, I mean, you look at the All Blacks and yes, they're absolute physical specimens, but they're the best rugby team in the world, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love sport. I just love drawing analogies from sport, and that's why I recommend sport to so many people, because I just think you get so much positive life experience out of sport, both socially, physically, mentally, like an attitude. Like there's a guy in our team, there's a couple really, that started in our team at the beginning of the season, just like never picked up a rugby ball. And like the confidence just as people they have now as a result of being involved in rugby in 6 months and being around the banter and the social environment. I'm like, they wouldn't have got that if they hadn't come and played sport.
Oh, actually, I saw something on Facebook this week, actually. I think I shared it. I can't remember who it was. It was an ex-pro rugby player. I think it was an English rugby player. It might have been Welsh one. I don't know. But he was involved in this. It must have been some charity organisation. And they were getting unemployed guys onto the field and playing rugby and getting them to start to play rugby. And he was talking about exactly the same thing. And it's the whole interview was about how they're trying to ban rugby, contact rugby now in some areas.
Yeah, in under
UK.
18.
Sorry, say that again.
If you're under 18, they're trying to ban it.
Which is well, look,
That's ridiculous.
As a Welsh girl, and I don't have children yet, but I am all for my son playing rugby from a very young age. I think it toughens you up. I think, I played rugby at university. Yeah, sure, you get some knocks. But it's such a fantastic team sport. Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Anyway, yeah. Last week on the podcast, we promised we would let you know about the retreat me and Rachel are doing. The BTM retreats are already up and they're advertised on the website. You can go to bodytypenutrition.co.uk and click on the retreat tab. We're running 4 retreats this year, 2 that are kind of like general, where we do some training, we do some learning, movement prep, nutrition. We do a little bit of everything, and it's for people that want to kind of learn a little bit of everything, improve themselves physically, mentally, nutritionally, meet some good people, enjoy some good food. And then we're doing one specifically for our academy students on the Body Type Nutrition Academy. Take them away, have some fun. And then lastly, me and Rachel are doing one. And that is going to be very much, much more female based. It is female only camp. Rachel's going to be doing a huge amount in the gym with everyone that comes. So we're going to be doing a lot of training specific for women and women's goals. Now, bear in mind, what happens is anyone that comes out on a BTM retreat, we do tailor what we kind of teach to the group that comes out. So the sort of, what do you call it, the syllabus or what we try to teach always changes when people come out, because you have to kind of flex to the group. Like sometimes we get really advanced groups, sometimes we get quite novice groups, and we kind of change things. So there's going to be a lot of training with me and Rachel. There's going to be some seminars. We're going to do some seminars on mindset as well. We're going to be doing kind of activation work, upper body, lower body, looking at the glutes and posterior chain, which is a neglected area, the core, that kind of stuff. And it's something me and Rachel are really excited about.
I'm so excited about this. And, I was putting a bit more pen to paper this weekend and sort of brainstorming it. And like you said, Ben, we'll tailor. We've got a brief syllabus and an outline. And I the basic thing that I really want to cover in this is the practical application of exercise, because yes, I run an online business and I can write the best fat loss program, but unless it is executed in a particular manner, to be honest, it's not worth the paper that it's written on. So I really want to get in front of people and to really teach you some new techniques, perhaps teach you specific ways for you to squat, to deadlift, and various other different exercises as well. We're going to go into depth, of course. We're going to talk about the glutes a lot. You're going to be walking away with some very sore glutes and hamstrings. It's a really, really important area to get the practical application down. And it'll be fun more than anything. You get a chance to hang out with me and Ben. We are going to do heaps of training. Ben's going to do all the food shopping for us, and God forbid. So, it'll be really fun. So really look forward to meeting you and having you on the retreat.
Yeah, so if you want to find out more, bodytypenutrition.co.uk, click on the retreat tab. All the info is there. Rachel, should we get into the show?
Yes, let's do it. That was a very Gary V show.
I'm a big fan of him. He's a great guy.
He is phenomenal, isn't he? Anyway, let's begin our show. This question is from Alice. Dear Ben and Rachel, I would like to start by saying how much you have both inspired me, so much so that I'm considering a career in nutrition or sports science. I love your podcast and I really enjoy listening to them on my way to school. My question concerns my age in relation to training. I'm 15 years old and I've recently started using a personal trainer, which I pay for with my babysitting money. I have since learnt how to perform compound moves such as deadlifts and squats, but I've come up with a problem at my local gym. I used to be allowed into the weight section, but now the management have got very strict, meaning that I'm not allowed, that I can't even use dumbbells until I'm 16. I am allowed into the weight and cardio machines, but not dumbbells or any free weights or racks. I just find it really limiting and frustrating, as I've just really started to enjoy lifting heavy, and I feel that this is really hard to achieve my desired goal without these. I appreciate this is probably due to health and safety, but can you suggest any other ways to get around this? I was also wondering if Rachel has any tips concerning training at my age, as I know she started lifting at a similar age to me. Thank you so much, and I hope that I will be able to attend one of your seminars one day.
Well, firstly, amazing. How dedicated is that someone's using their babysitting money to, invest in their health and their body and stuff. I just think that's amazing. Not many people would do that. So massive respect there. I'll answer the first bit and then Rachel can answer the second bit, because obviously that's kind of her thing. That's obviously really a big shame that your gym has kind of enforced that. Now, the thing with being under 18 or often under 16 is that you kind of need parental sort of guidance or the okay by parents. So if your parents are bought into what you're doing, I would get them to come to the gym and say, look, I know you've got this new policy, but I'm really happy for my daughter to be training in this way. I'd like her to train in this way. Otherwise, I'll look to take my business elsewhere, because it's important for my daughter that she continues in this way physically. I support this. So I'd get the parent to go and kind of do that. If you really want to stay in that gym and they're not willing to budge, then you might have to adapt your routine to kind of use machines. Again, not ideal if you're young. You want to move fluidly and naturally. You might have to look to move gyms. But it's a shame that they're doing that. But as for training at a young age as a girl, look, I'll hand over to Rachel, because this is her thing.
Well, again, first of all, I've had a very similar experience. I mean, I started lifting weights when I was 13. Not super heavy, but I was lifting at 13. I was doing some isolation work at that stage. I was using machines and I was using free weights under the guidance of a trainer and learning. But the first thing that I would say was that I got told that I wasn't allowed to use the weights until I was 16, and to be honest, I did it anyway until I got thrown out of there. And sometimes I would be left undisturbed and uninterrupted, and other days I would have the gym manager come up to me and say, Rachel, you know that you're 14 years old and you shouldn't be in this area. In which case, I would be very polite, bat my eyelids, and send him on his way, and then I'd go off and use the machine weights, which is fine. And look, perhaps that's irresponsible for me to say, but the reality is that, if you can get parental consent, first of all, from your parents, that's a massive step in the right direction. So the first thing, are rules there made to be broken? I don't know. It depends on your gym. But the second thing is that you can get an awesome workout in that gym environment if you're just using, body weight. You can use a bit of resistance using the pin-loaded equipment, if that's all you have access to. In terms of, particularly if you have prowlers and sleds and things like that, I mean, you can absolutely load those up. So I really don't have anything further to add other than the choice is yours. I mean, you can either change gyms or continue to use what you have there and realise, it's not the end of the world. I think that, when I certainly felt, when I was 13, 14, 15, up to 17, that unless I was lifting weights, then I was doing myself a disservice. And when you're so young, it's really important to have a very diverse range of training. So you don't just need to lift weights. It might be that, you train somewhere else and you do your squatting and your deadlifting on sort of 1 or 2 other days a week. And when you're training in that gym, you're doing more bodyweight stuff, some TRX work, some prowler work. You can use the pin-loaded equipment. There's nothing wrong with a bit of bodybuilding stuff now and again. When you're 15, and look, if you were into bodybuilding at 15, then I'd strongly encourage it. But I would also say that I think you need a variety there. And the truth is that should you be lifting maximal loads at 15? No, because you're still growing. But you can still lift within the guidance of your personal trainer. And I don't know how developed you are as a 15-year-old. Because again, I've trained particularly some guys, some young rugby lads who are sort of 15, 16, and they're almost fully grown adult, young adult men. And then on the flip side of that, I've also trained some who are still sort of very young in their development. So it's very much a grey area. And that's really all I can suggest, particularly online. Unless I saw you face to face, it would be a different story. But, you know, it's one of those things that it's quite hard for me to advise.
I think one thing I would do in this situation is I believe that, and this is kind of very much my thought process after being around Andy McKenzie a lot, is a huge fan of bodyweight training, getting your core right, getting your movement right. Like, no one ever tends to move properly these days. Like, it's such an issue, and I've been addressing a lot of my own personal things kind of recently because I've just spent years not moving properly. But, you know, there's just so much progression you can make with, like, bodyweight movements, gymnastics, calisthenics, swinging around on bars, using bands, power bags, Bosu balls. Like, at your age, you don't, like Rachel says, you don't need to look to kind of maximally lift in any way. Like, you don't have to squat, you don't have to deadlift, you don't have to do all that stuff. You could do loads of things with a kettlebell, with a sandbag, with just so many different things. Now, bearing in mind your personal trainer might not have a vast background, I don't know. If his ability is in a lot of the traditional training in a gym, then you might have to actually look to get a different personal trainer. But for example, if you went to a coach like Andy McKenzie, who has, you know, a great diverse background in things like bodyweight training, that kind of stuff, he could probably train you for 5 years before he would actually say, do you know what, it'd be really good if we had a squat rack now. Yeah, and he might even ever say, like, do you know what, actually, it's just not relevant. I can train your body in so many ways to be flexible, strong, mobile, agile, and able through just really simple training techniques. And, you know, look at, there's just so many examples around the world of, you know, non-traditional training being amazing. Like, where I play, we play against teams that are heavily laden with farmers, and they're some of the most strong people on the planet because they just do weird stuff like picking up heavy things with their hands, carrying, you know, bales, animals, you know, whatever farmers do, but, you know, proper man strength. So I think while we tend to think laterally about training in the gym environment, there's just so many more options if we actually think about the dynamics of human movement.
Okay, and just to reiterate that, not everybody should squat and deadlift ever. So, you know, this, you know, we all say, and look, you know, I say it too, yeah, you know, squatting, deadlifting, overhead pressing, chin-ups, all that kind of stuff, they're amazing. And your programs should perhaps at some stage have one or some or all of those in it. However, not everybody is designed or built to, you know, back squat or deadlift from the floor. You know, I'm training somebody at the moment. He's 61. He's in now phenomenal shape, and he's pulling. He's certainly pulling over 100 kilos for reps. But he can't quite get to the floor. So, you know, I've got him pulling off one step or one platform. So, you know, and so that's a case of modifying a deadlift specific to him. Now, if we look at, you know, some diehard deadlift fanatics out there, they'll say, well, it doesn't really count because you're not pulling off the floor. But the reality is that that's a perfectly safe and effective exercise for him. So yeah, not everybody. You don't necessarily. I'll tell you now. Like, I don't have squatting or deadlifting in my program right now, and you know, I probably won't for the next month or so. So, you know, you don't always have to squat and deadlift, and there are heaps of other things that you can do. So I think it's a case of, you know, get creative, find some other things to do, and you know, I think the most important thing would be for you to plan your workouts. So that you know what you're doing every time that you go into a gym, because I know how frustrating it is when you go into the gym with a plan, and say, for example, it does have a back squat and a lying leg curl and, you know, a few other things in your program, and then you get told that you actually can't use that equipment. It would then sort of throw you into a bit of a spin where you have to think on your feet. Now, even somebody who's advanced, like if I can't access a particular piece of equipment, that throws me, and I get really annoyed because, you know, it's something that you visualize doing. So I would have a particular plan that you know that if you're going to that gym, Alice, then you have, you know, it might be that you do certain body weight exercises, then you do, a couple of pin loaded exercises, and that's your workout.
There we go.
Awesome. So, next question. This question is from Elizabeth. Hello, Ben and Rachel. My name's Elizabeth, and I'm a huge fan of the podcast. You make my commute bearable, even enjoyable, and you cannot possibly know how much that I appreciate that. Thank you both for such amazing content that you put out and your awesome positivity. I feel your good vibes all the way over here in New Jersey. I've not listened to every episode yet, but I'm getting there, so apologies if this question was already answered. If not, I would really love some guidance. For a bit of a quick background, I'm currently training myself for my first marathon, whilst also looking to keep up a decent volume of strength training to maintain my muscle and hopefully continue to build my strength. My training protocols include 3 weekly runs, slowly increasing mileage, currently 4 to 5 miles per run, and 4 to 5 strength training routines. My macros are 130 grams protein, 145 grams carbs, and 45 grams of fat. I'm 5'2" and I weigh between 105 to 107 pounds, and I follow a vegan diet. My question is about fasted training. Whilst I'm very conscious of taking in a fair portion of protein post-workout, I currently do the majority of my workouts, both cardio and strength, in a fasted state with intra-workout BCAAs. I do not train fasted because I think it has some magical fat-burning benefit or for any strategic reason, but simply because of my schedule. With my current job situation, I have to get up at 4:30 a.m. to exercise before work, and sometimes even earlier. So 3 things. 1, I'm just not hungry at that hour, which I know would change over time if I did start to eat. 2, I would rather get as much sleep as possible than wake up even earlier to add an extra step in the morning to eat pre-workout. And 3, I have to stretch my macros over the entire day, so I hate to use some of them up so early when I'm not even hungry. My husband gets home from work at 9 p.m. most nights, and we make a point of eating dinner together. So if I eat post-workout, I have to stretch my food from 4:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., and that's a bit tough. I've also tried it both ways. In the past, when my schedule was a bit more accommodating to my early morning workouts, I would sometimes get up closer to 5:30 a.m. to train. I did eat a pre-workout meal, usually oatmeal or cold cereal, or sometimes just dried fruit. But to be honest, I didn't notice much of a difference in my energy or strength either way. But having said all of that, I've heard from enough fitness professionals that I truly trust and believe in, such as yourselves, advise against fasted training, and I wanted to address this and adjust my eating schedule, especially if I'm adding more steady state cardio, and I did not want to burn away any hard-earned muscle. So my question is, what exactly would you recommend I eat post-workout that will allow me to benefit from having some food for fuel, whilst saving many of my macros, as many of my macros as possible for later in the day? Should it be all carbs? Given my stats, approximately how many grams of carbs and or macros as a minimum would I need to shift to this time of day? And do I have to eat them at least 30 minutes before I start training? Or can I eat them whilst I'm driving to the gym or right before training? Thank you so much for everything. Take care, Elizabeth.
Wow. So the big thing with this question is we generalise because this is a generalised show to give information to people to hopefully clobber together and make a best decision with their situation. Now, my kind of key thing with everyone is that, look, if you feel like things aren't right or it doesn't feel good, you don't feel alive, you're not training well, then change something. If you feel good, your stress is in the right place, your training is good, then by all means, carry on doing what you're doing. So in this situation, you haven't told us anything outside of the issue that you're currently facing with fasted training, your workout and stuff. So it's very hard for me to say, oh, actually, yes, you should eat before your workout. Now, if you told me that you weren't sleeping as good as you could and you're training, you're not training as hard as you were, a couple of weeks ago, and maybe your libido's dropped, maybe your daily concentration has dropped. If you were sort of telling me that kind of stuff, then I'd be like, right, well, actually, that kind of needs to change. Now, Rachel, that's really loud, by the way, all that rustling.
I'm sorry, I just dropped my pen and I was just trying to work out actually how many calories she's consuming. Sorry.
Shh.
Okay, I'm quiet now.
So if things are wrong, then I would question it. Now, already at the moment, it sounds like you're training a lot, 4 to 5 hours a week on the strength stuff, 3 weekly runs. That's quite a bit. Like if I was training for a half marathon, I'd probably be doing 3 runs a week and 2 strength training sessions, leaving 2 rest days. And on both of those days, I make sure I've got some mobility in, some walking, some downtime, maybe a hot bath, jacuzzi, steam room, just something, if I was training hard that would help with my recovery. So, I think that is the first port of call. I don't think you have to train as hard. I think there is definitely a much more minimal effective dose. I can imagine that you've been strength training for a while and you've decided to do the marathon and you've tried to keep up all your strength training and add the marathon training. Well, something's got to give, and you're going to be fine maintaining your muscle and your strength on 2 sessions a week. Your strength might go down a little bit, but you can't train for marathons and have maximal strength all the time. Like it's hard to periodize this stuff. It sounds like you've got a very busy lifestyle, potentially a bit of a hard hitting job. You're getting up early in the morning. Rachel, did you work out what her calories were?
Yeah, it's just like 1,500 calories.
Okay, so it sounds like you're eating way, 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 way too little. We've covered this a lot on the show. I'm not sure where you are up to at the show, but if not, look up on YouTube a video of mine called How to Increase Your Calorie Ceiling. I'd recommend you look up that. You're awake from 4:30 in the morning till 9:30 at night, training hard for an hour. 1,500 calories is way too little. Even though you're 5'2", I think if I was working with you, you were on full cylinders, I'd be expecting you're eating 2,200, 2,500 like minimum, kind of every day. So I think, in terms of stretching out your macros, I don't think you'd have to stretch out as much if you ate a bit more, and I think you could try and eat a bit more.
That was exactly my point, and it was pretty much there was 2 things I wanted to say here. The first thing was massively under eating. Was the first thing, and particularly as you mentioned, you're concerned about having to stretch out your macros. If you're feeling like you have to stretch macros and you can't eat before the training because you have to save them for the rest of the day, that to me, as a female coach coaching other females, massive red flag, massive warning sign that you are on a restricted calorie diet. So that would be the first thing. The second thing would be, and look, hang on a minute, I'm just going to say here as well that 1,500 calories for some people who are in an office job might absolutely be fine if they're only training, 3 to maximum 4 times a week. But for somebody who's, running 5 to 7 miles, that's like over 10 Ks 3 times a week, and 4 to 5 strength training sessions, like Ben said, in excess of 2,000, 2,500 calories would be certainly my baseline, even for somebody of your weight, around 105 to 107 pounds. And the second thing is that you can't, I'm just trying to find the question here where you asked about, you wanted to increase your strength and obviously run a marathon as well. And just realised, we talked about this on last week's podcast. 2 weeks ago, you can't do the 2 at the same time. So you might be able to maintain your strength, but it's very hard to get a lot stronger and train for a marathon at the same time. So if you want to do one really well. And then when you finish, for example, your marathon, then focus on sort of strength training and hypertrophy and sort of cycle it like that. So that's the only 2 things that I wanted to add.
I think it also comes down to a goal focus here, because while I think you can probably improve in strength and endurance at the same time, your periodization does have to be really on point. And also, you've got to be eating for performance. You've got to be eating a lot and really know what those nutrients are, making sure they're nutrient dense. You've got tons of magnesium, really important nutrients that fuel recovery. And you're eating at the moment like you're kind of in, a bit of an end phase calorie deficit and end phase fat loss plan. So you just can't, if you're doing this as a stimulus for weight loss, know that you might really struggle to improve your strength at the same time. Now, if you're doing this training template with the aim of really improving performance, then eat for performance. Don't eat for fat loss. So there is a malalignment of goals here for me as well. And if you did want to eat before your workout, like, you know, I'd probably just have like 20 gram, literally a 20 gram shot of Sun Warrior and about half a banana, and then get in the gym. But if you feel good training fasted, then carry on. I don't see it as a problem.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm, you know, depending on, you know, we don't know. Well, we've got we've got Elizabeth's stats here, but, you know, other pre-workouts that recommends my girls would be, you know, Elizabeth, if you're looking to increase your calories, for sure, you know, have something like that pre-training, or even, you know, protein with some fats pre-workout works really well as well. So it really depends on, you know, how your body functions and what macros it functions on the best. You know, I've got some ladies who function really well on carbs and protein pre-training. And we're talking about maintenance phase now. We're not talking about fat loss, maintenance. And then I've got some ladies who do really well on protein and fats pre-training. So it really depends on the person. So, you know, it's good to trial the two and see which one you feel best on.
Right, let's wrap up the show. Thank you everyone for listening. As per last week and every week, look, if you enjoyed the show, please share it. We really appreciate it. Chat to me and Rachel. I'm Ben Coomber online. Rachel is Athletic Fox online. April the 1st sees the doors open to our Body Type Nutrition Academy, the online nutrition course that I teach. If you want some more information, then you can, it's really easy. You could text 67076. Just text the word academy and we'll send you some information right back. If not, you can go on to bodytypenutrition.co.uk and check out the academy tab. That's for people that are interested in taking their nutrition knowledge to the next level. I've mentioned previously that Lane Norton is now teaching on the course as well. We've got another new coach in Stephen Ace who's doing some mindset work. Will Hawkins, he's doing some mindset psychology, client adherence and client maintenance work. And hopefully April the 1st will be ready to launch the new Advanced Academy, which has had a big revamp, but I'm not sure we're going to be ready. But just basically pay attention to my email list, pay attention on Facebook and stuff. Hopefully I'll be able to say it is, but a lot of work is going on currently behind the scenes, so we'll have to see. We'll do our best. Rachel, again, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And everyone, I hope you've enjoyed it, and we will speak to you all next week. Ciao.
Ciao.
Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 180. Now, on the previous podcast, I promised a guest on gut health. That's going to be untrue. Today's guest is all about doing really physical stuff, which, I'll be honest, I'm fairly good at, but not to this extreme.